We have our third panel discussion, which we are going to start now. This is a panel discussion which is happening on fueling growth, capital, confidence, and the future of real estate financing. This session will delve into REITs, invite in VIT evolution, global and domestic capital flows, interest rate impacts, the rise of private credit and AIFs, structured debt, platform deals, and challenges in deployment due to land prices and regulatory timelines. Now, great. So we've got Mr. Banerjee. Mr. Banerjee, दो लाइनें ICC के बारे में, इंडियन चैम्बर ऑफ कॉमर्स के बारे में. वैसे हम आपको पहले भी सुन चुके हैं, लेकिन एज द कॉमर्स आपका जो ये चैम्बर है, आई थिंक 100 साल पुराना है, if I'm not wrong. Why don't you come on the stage and possibly I would like to, so पहले मैंने आपको इंट्रोड्यूस नहीं किया था. मिस्टर देव माल्या बैनर्जी
इनॉगरल में तो था.
हाँ किया था, लेकिन ढंग से नहीं किया था. Okay, so Mr. Dev Malya Banerjee is there with us. He is from ICC and he would possibly share his insights about ICC. 100 साल हो गए हैं सर, आपको मुझे नहीं, ICC को, which is great sir. I think it's an institution which in itself calls for a round of applause. एक बार तालियां बजा दो भैया, 100 साल हो गए हैं यार, कम नहीं हुए हैं. They just completed 100 years. That's a long time for an association to be into being. Please.
See, I was having my ice cream and then मुस्कान मेरे को पकड़ के लेके आया. मुझे सर आपको बोलना है ICC के बारे में. तो ठीक है, प्लेट वहाँ पे पड़ा है, आइसक्रीम मेल्ट भी हो जाएगा. But I came here. Yes, as he pointed out, we are a 100-year-old organization. It was founded in the year 1925 by G.D. Birla under the advice of father of the nation, Mahatma Gandhi. And in those days, the country needed a chamber which will fight the Britishers, and we were part of the freedom struggle. So basically, initial days there were presidencies where they were British. I still, see the initial incorporation documents were, signed by Britishers. But we used to always aid the Swadeshi businesses, support dete the. And then with the passage of time, 100 years crossed. It's a century-old organization now. Abhi ICC, CII, FICCI, ASSOCHAM, these are 4-5 large organizations, national public institutions. We have 2,000 plus members, 11 offices हमारा है इंडिया में, and globally we have 25 chapters. We are the only national chamber जिसका 25 chapter है globally. So be it a Brazil, be it a Uruguay, be it a Germany, be it a Washington DC, be it a South Korea, be it a Vietnam, Mauritius, every place we have our own. So 25 chapters means 25 international chairs. And within the country, plus international chairs mila ke, we have 68 chairs in the organization. It is so magnanimous. And we are part of the Delhi team. My responsibility lies, I am the regional director. While it's such an ocean that I will not be knowing what is happening in Bangalore today or what may be happening in Guwahati today, because the organization as a whole is magnanimous. It's an ocean. And out of these 11 offices, Delhi office is considered a very, very important piece of office because, we work closely with the states, central government, as well as various diplomatic missions in India. So, आज को का कार्यक्रम तो आप लोग देख रहे हैं. We do 250 such conferences every year. Real estate तो 1-2 ऐसे होगा साल में. 250 conferences, delegations, incoming, outgoing is happening in various parts of the country. I remember in a single day in Delhi, few years back, 3 conferences in 3 hotels going on. And I was having a tough time in supplying manpower. Means ड्यूटी लगाने के लिए मेरा दिक्कत हो रहे थे, किसको कहाँ पे लगाए. 3 people heads like मुस्कान is asking for manpower. मेरे यहाँ पे लगा दीजिए, मेरे यहाँ पे लगा दीजिए. So that's the scale of operations that we have. Something was going on in startup with DPIIT, something was going on in healthcare, and something was going in railways. and 3 different topics. It's like a mini United Nations. We also have hundreds of global MOUs with various chambers, international organizations, intergovernmental organizations. Like tomorrow, we have one more conference with United Nations at Park Hotel. That's on sustainability in business. So one more topic. Next week, we have a delegation. We have, not before the delegation, there is a Rising Jammu and Kashmir in Jammu. Janab Omar Abdullah is coming as the chief guest. After that, immediately there is a exhibition in Nigeria. From Kashmir only, you have to run. It's like that. So it's a magnanimous institution. I remember in a single day, Delhi was having a program, Dar es Salaam was having a program, Dibrugarh was having a program. And none of us knew till the time we saw the WhatsApp group that kuch ho raha hai. So that's so magnanimous, and we continue to add value to the Indian industry with the blessings of all of you. This is something just about ICC. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So, lunch के बाद का सेशन है. सारे के सारे एक्साइटेड है. किसी की आवाज नहीं है, किसी का कुछ नहीं है, शांति है सब. Okay, can we all stand up for a second, please? Can we all stand up? All of us, please. Can we stand up for a second, please? Okay. If you see a person on your right, shake hands with her or him, please. Shake hands with your person on the right, please. Shake hands with your person on the right. On the right, please. Shake hands with your person on the right. Koi problem nahi hai, please. Okay, great. I can see some yawns, by the way. I won't like to see yawns. Okay, let the session go on. जो moderator है, वो संभालेगा yawns को, मैं नहीं संभालूंगा इसके बाद. Okay, please sit down. Please have a seat. Can we have a round of applause for ICC, please, guys? Okay, so with this, I would like to call upon our moderator for the next session, who's Sonal Mehta. So Sonal I've known since a long time now. She is dynamic, versatile, and with over 20 plus years of experience in banking, in the finance domain in India and abroad, with solid planning and organization skills. She's currently associated with merchant bankers, so category 1 merchant bankers as senior vice president. She's proficient in liaising with banks and NBFCs to fund financial requirement of clients. She's an out of the box thinker, which I know of as well, let's guess, and highly analytical, thus being able to comprehend and explain complex financial data easily. Sonal, please come and join us on stage. Sonal Mehta, guys. Can we have a round of applause for her, please? Okay, my next guest for the panel is Hardeep Sachdeva ji. He's a senior partner with AZB, and AZB, of course, is one of India's most respected authorities in corporate M&A and real estate law, with over 30 years of experience advising leading Indian and multinational clients, widely regarded as one of the country's foremost real estate lawyers. He has led several landmark mergers and acquisitions, private equity, infrastructure, monetization transactions, including projects across airports, railways, and metro developments. Can we have a round of applause for Hardeep Sachdeva, please? Okay, next we have Mr. Manik Malik from BPTP. He's the CEO for BPTP. Can you join us on stage, please? Okay, he's a visionary business leader with 20 plus years of experience in real estate, financial strategy, corporate governance, currently serving as CEO of BPTP Limited, driving transformation, profitability, and sustainable growth across verticals. He has a proven expertise in fundraising, investor relations, financial planning, organizational restructuring, and new business development. Demonstrated track record of steering strategic decisions, enhancing operational efficiency, and delivering value to stakeholders. Next, we have Mr. Pradeep Mishra. I just met you right now, Chairman and Managing Director for Rudra Abhishek Enterprises. He has about 30 years of experience across infrastructure, urban development, and real estate, and construction consultancy. A visionary entrepreneur, he founded REPL in 1992. Under his leadership, he has played a pivotal role in the conceptualization and execution of smart cities, high-tech townships, Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana projects, and large-scale residential, commercial, and hospitality developments across India. He's also led REPL to achieve a significant milestone by becoming one of the first firms in India to receive SEBI registration as an investment manager for REITs, SM REITs, and marking a new chapter in real estate investment and asset management. Believe you me, this is something which I would like to hear about REITs, which will be the next future for real estate. So whether it's REITs or whether it's fractional ownership, both of them go, I would say, not hand in hand, but slightly, futuristic. For some of us who've know the traditional way of real estate, ये थोड़ा सा नया concept है, which is great. We would love to hear from you. Next, we have Mr. Rafat Jahan Siddiqui from JM Financial. He's the regional head North. I'm so sorry. So Rafat Jahan Siddiqui is a seasoned corporate finance professional with over 17 years of experience, including 14 plus years in credit solutions across real estate, healthcare, hospitality, and education. She has successfully sanctioned and disbursed over 13,000 plus crores with deep expertise in credit organizations, deal structuring, portfolio de-risking, insolvency resolution, and mortgage structures, currently serving as the Executive Director and Regional Head at JM Financial Credit Solutions Limited. She has been instrumental in building and leading the real estate lending business in North India, maintaining zero debt, zero default portfolio even through challenging market cycles. Okay, last but not the least, we have Mr. Abhay Garg, who's the head of Earth Fund. Okay, is he there with us?
He's just joining in 5-7 minutes.
Okay, no problem. So I am Kunal Behrani, and so I'll hand over the stage to Sonal, and we'll meet once this is over. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kunal, for setting the stage and for a brief introduction. So I think, post-lunch, difficult keeping people awake, and especially, when you're talking about finance. So thoda sa bhari subject hai, but we will try to make it more simpler for people to understand and, probably have some more questions from you guys. And I have an amazing panel with me, a mix of legal, mix of developer and from the fund houses. So real estate as a sector, हम लोग सुबह से जो बात कर रहे हैं, real estate has been the most important sector for the economic development of any country today that we talk about. And उसके अंदर सुबह अनुज जी ने बोला, बाकी लोगों ने बोला, execution is the key. I would agree on that with a little punchline on it. ठीक है, आपके पास लैंड है, आपके पास लाइसेंस है, आपके पास अप्रूवल्स हैं, आप एग्जीक्यूशन कैपेबिलिटी भी रखते हो, लेकिन अगर आपके पास फाइनेंस नहीं होगा, वो प्रोजेक्ट कंप्लीट नहीं कर पाओगे. So I think, there is where a finance plays a very important role for any real estate project that you're talking about, that before you start the project, funding is something which any developer today, Tier 1, Tier 2, big, small, has to sort out before he starts with the project there. So I would, probably like to take the discussion forward here. बाकी सब points majorly हम लोगों ने सुबह cover कर लिए कि पिछले 1-1.5 साल में real estate की जब हम बात करते हैं, so residential has their own ups and downs. There has been sales which has gone up. Tier 2 cities, there are new projects which are coming up. There is probably price maybe up and down, thoda sa changes aa rahe hain residential ke andar. Commercial also, when we are talking about my last panel, the table space girl, she was talking about, that there is a lot of things which are happening on the commercial side also that we are looking at. And yes, green buildings, again, is a very important concept which is coming on right now. In all these discussions we have added in the morning, I would just like to add one more thing is SM REIT, which Kunal was also mentioning about, is a new structure. And मुझे लग रहा है कि इसमें इंडिया मार्केट में हम लोगों को थोड़ा सा और प्रोडक्ट के ऊपर काम इसमें करना ज़रूरी है, because globally when you're talking about SM REIT has a wider perspective and the sectors which it can be covered, the product lines. लेकिन इंडिया मार्केट में अगर हम देखेंगे तो अभी हमने उसको सिर्फ कमर्शियल पे फोकस करके रखा हुआ है. सो आई थिंक REIT and SM REIT as a structure when you're talking about needs a lot more push for making it more valuable as a product from the developers and from the investors perspective. So with this, I would just like to start with the discussion with my panelists. So should we wait for Abhay to join? Great. So here my first question would go to Manik ji. So Manik Malik is the CEO of BPTP. So my first question is to him. Sir, Manik ji, NRI account for an estimated 20% of high real estate investment in India, with rupee depreciation directly enhancing affordability for this segment. As NRI participation deepens, are Indian luxury homes increasingly being evaluated against a broader set of global residential options? Majorly, if you're talking about, if you're looking at luxury housing today, major portfolio is with NRIs.
Well, I think if we talk of NCR, and that's where I'll restrict my expertise to, in our understanding or based on any reports that we have read, of overall 45 or 1,000 units that we are talking of, it's not more than ballpark 20%, which means nearly 8 or 8,500 units, which currently are being taken by NRIs. Now, in all fairness, I think because supply is simply too low, so having to state is 8,000 unit big enough, good enough? My personal belief, no. The percentage should be higher or lower is very relative because number of units are way more limited. I think clearly that interest is there. I think over the last few years that percentage has gone up. But then again, the fact is that a few years back, the quantum of units that were coming in luxury space was also extremely minimum.
Yeah.
So I think we all look for NRI sales. I think every office, every large developer has a specific NRI desk. There's a mapping which happens from which city, from which state is this NRI investment coming in. But I think given the number of units that are currently being procured, and if you compare the same number of units that is being procured in say Delhi NCR, or in all fairness even Pan India, and you compare it to Dubai and look at the percentage of investment that is moving towards Dubai of NRIs, I think there's a gap in that percentage. I think the last report I read, maybe number can be off by few percentages, but nearly 25 odd percentage of overseas buyer purchasing in Dubai market were actually NRIs. So I think it's one way to say that there is reasonable confidence and that percentage is coming up in India. But clearly I think more confidence on our own development needs to be inculcated in NRI market. There has to be more freedom given in terms of entry and exit. Less of questioning when it comes to account management to increase this particular portfolio.
Great. I think, that's very well answered. So I personally agree on those bases that, even in the other countries when you're talking about, there are a lot of investments which are happening, which are comparatively a little more smoother as compared to, when you're doing investments in the India market there. Great. Next question will go to Hardeep Sachdeva ji. So Hardeep ji, India continues to be in the top 10 global cross-border investment destinations for land and development sites. But when foreign investors compare our legal framework, title, clarity, dispute resolution timelines with peers, where do we genuinely hold an edge and where are we still disadvantaged?
Thank you, Sonal. I think we all know that the prime ingredient for a real estate project, as you mentioned at the very opening of your statement, is capital or is money. We need to have a free flow of money available to real estate sector for it to grow the way it can grow. As of now, if you look at the availability of the capital flow in this sector, there are humongous embargoes on the banks to fund real estate sector, embargoes in the light of not to fund the land purchases, not to fund any takeout for the next project here, and many others. Even for a LRD, there is a quantum limit as to, there's a percentage limit as to how much you should be funding LRD projects also. Then there are similar embargoes placed on the non-banking financial institutions as well, in NBFCs. With your NBFCs and Indian banks having embargoes to fund the very basic land purchase or funding, a startup real estate company, I'll come on a startup real estate company a little later, there is a very limited choice, and that choice for seeking capital for real estate is either these domestic financial institutions, the likes of Rafat, JM, or many more which are there, or a foreign financial institution. Even for foreign financial institution, there are several restrictions for them to bring in money in a free flow manner. As Manik was saying, there has to be free flow or a smooth sort of operations possibility even for any investment. But even for foreign financial institution, there are so many restrictions for them to bring in money as debt in real estate sector here. For domestic financial institution, yes, that is, they are the primary contributor to real estate. But in my view, there is a huge dearth of money as of now with the domestic financial institutions to fund the entire landscape or a desire or a demand for real estate sector in our country here, especially the way we want to grow. So then there are some policy changes proposed by the government, including to let ECB come into a land purchase as of now, but that is yet to be notified. Once we have that notified, at least we'll have one more big channel of money, or foreign money coming into Indian real estate sector to buy land or buy assets only. That needs to be implemented at the earliest. And we need to get rid of all restrictions that we are seeing today for a free flow of the financing of real estate projects in India if we really have to let it grow the way we have to let it grow, I had a comment when Manik spoke about NRI investments in, I think you said Dubai, right? So if you really have to compare the apple to apple, you can't say NRI in Dubai. If you look at the non-resident UAE investors in a Dubai project, it will be 90%, not 20%. It could be 95%. That's what the market is. Your market should be able to attract not Indian diaspora, but something which is beyond Indian diaspora. We should be today leading the market by letting foreign investors to make investment into that segment as well. Only then they can unlock the real value of the projects. You to unlock the value, it's locked. You only have limited market, limited people can come, limitation on the financing. Then you have over 130 approvals required for a real estate project. You need money for that as well. On the top of it, I think over lunch we were speaking about some, can there be a real estate startup company? But the species doesn't exist. You don't have the startups happening in a real estate project because nobody wants to fund you. That's another problem here. You have angel funding for want to do, wherever you want to lose money, you have angel, you have VC, you have a lot of other names who will come and fund you in the name of losing money. But in the name of really gaining some traction and some profits, you will not have people funding you as a startup in a real estate sector. So yeah, this is where we are. I think we are caged. We need to uncage ourselves to see the real unlocking of value.
Very well covered. So I think, yes, I think, the very, very important thing here is that real estate has to be, as a sector, has to be given that option, that if you are a first-time developer, there has to be a funding mechanism which can be available for you to smoothly take the project. And yes, I think ECB introduction for land is very, very important. I think this has been in discussion for some time, but I think if that happens, so that will be a very important transformation for the sector. Like, for example, when RERA happened, like we were Gauraji was discussing in the morning that after the RERA happened, just stuck-up projects, अब वो बहुत कम हो गए. Similarly, I think if something like ECB is introduced for developers for the land side, so that will also help a lot of more good developers to come in and complete the project. My next question is to Pradeep Mishra, sir. So, sir, here when we're talking about REIT and SM REIT as a sector, despite rapid growth, Indian REIT represents only about 19% of the listed real estate value, far below the global average of 57%. What sort of long-term potential do you see for REIT in India? Does it need a broader asset base and issue pipeline to grow meaningfully?
REIT is a very new concept in India. It's
Absolutely.
hardly 6-7 year old concept. So if we see the market, then 57 or 60% of the standard market in any developed country, and India is at 19%. So the balance 42%, 41% is a market which our market in India is there for the development. And REIT is answer of number of things which is happening or not happening in real estate, unlocking the asset value, generating fund, building assets which can have a good yield. So REIT to hona hi hona hai, and is a huge market. So market will grow. Second point is that for the REIT, the yield is very important factor. So, the new offices, buildings, warehouse, the developers who are developing it, and now they are very cautious about the yield part. And the structure, they are signing document with the tenants. So the structure of their agreements, their structure, the yield structure, the change is happening in India. And because of all those change, the जो REIT है वो बहुत large scale पे इंडिया में grow करेगा. And lately the mutual funds and LIC are also allowed to invest in REIT.
Okay.
So
That's interesting.
The money which is available for the investment in REIT is very huge, and it is developing, and it will develop in a large way.
Okay. This was
I have something to add,
Yeah.
one small thing. There are 5 listed REITs in India, 4
Right.
commercial office, 1 retail. Obviously, the threshold was 500 crore rupees, and obviously government thought that they can compete with likes of China or Singapore or a more developed REIT-developed market to have multiple REITs here. We only have 5. If you compare with any other country, they may have 30, 40, 45, 50. We are far from what we can do here. That's one problem. Second is that we still have humongous amount of income yielding, income generating asset that can be listed for people. I mean, that may not really qualify to be REIT, but then there were SM REIT guidelines notified by SEBI. They thought there was a euphoric at that point in
Right.
time that you got SM REIT guidelines notified, you'll have hundreds of SM REITs listed here because the threshold from 500 crore went to 50 crore rupees. We got what, 2 or 3 approvals, sir, till now? 3 approvals till now. 3 approvals. If you look at the listed ones, 1 listed as of now?
One listed.
1 listed. This is where we are. Because there also there are so many issues. Until you iron them out, you will not have SM REIT reached out to a real public participation in real estate. If you look at tokenization, or what do you call tokenization this? Yeah?
Yeah.
Fractional ownership. The fractional ownership platforms, not even single as of now approved by Indian regulator till now. There are 4 or 5 operating in the country. They are operating through Dubai or Middle East somewhere. But this is where we are. Because of the lack
Regulatory.
because of the lack of policy or lack of a quick action on some of these things, I think we are lagging behind in the real asset monetization in our country. That needs to be fixed. REIT, SM REIT, tokenization versus fractional ownership. Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to add few things more. That though there is only 4 REIT and 1 SM REIT listed, but total asset value they are handling is more than the total AIF are handling. And you are having 1,000 license for AIF, and the 1,000 AIFs are handling the same size which the 5 REITs are handling. So see the scale. So it is not the number,
So I
it
think,
is the scale.
I think, sir, broadly speaking, all these 5 REIT combined, and probably my numbers will be off by 5 to 10 million, but is managing nearly 150 million square feet of leased area. Now, if you look at Indian market, and again, it's there's always that issue on supply side, but Indian market grade A asset is, some estimates tells us that it's approximately 900 odd million square feet. And I'm only talking of grade A assets, which effectively implies that you are hovering around 18% in term of penetration when it comes to REIT.
Right.
Now, I think when we talk of the quantum or policy level issue, say for SME REIT, when we say that there is a 50 crore for a valuation of 500 odd crore, now the fact is that these particular assets will typically cater to grade B cities, where effectively out of this 900 odd million square feet, there will be like 0 million square feet or maybe 10 million square feet of total area. This 900 million square feet is all surrounded around 5 top cities that we typically refer to.
I'll say you multiply that by 2 if you want to add this grade B, grade C or tier 2, tier 3 cities.
So currently
we are not even 10% of
Absolutely.
the asset which are in a institutionally
Currently, what
rated.
Manik was talking about is only on the grade A categories that we have right now.
For the market, you have
Yeah.
B, C,
We have-
everything. Market is market, it has everything in the market. Yeah, sorry.
Practically, the market is now just evolving.
Yeah.
And regulators are also quite both cautious हैं वो, and they are open to bring out various schemes, relax it further. But eventually this will develop and it will grow. And 10 years down the line or 15 years down the line, you will see that the size of REIT is as big as the mutual fund market in India.
Wow.
But that 10 year is long period, sir. Can we do it in 3 years' time? We need to move faster in these things. Listen, we have a vision of a 5 trillion, 50 trillion economy. We need to move a little faster than 10 years.
The 5 trillion economy is true, but if our currency is depreciating by 10% every year,
Right. Thank you so much, Pradeep ji. So I think, very right. So regulatory issues, if monitored, so I think REIT and SM REIT both are 2 products which are very important for the real estate sector. And like I mentioned, let's not restrict it only to commercial. There are other products which are there in the residential side, in the co-working side, or data centers also when we're talking about there. I think all these products can be used even in these categories as well. So my next question is to Rafat. So Rafat, in your experience, what operating or governance choices tend to separate developers who attract long-term institutional capital from those who don't? I think you'll be the best one to answer.
So it's a simple question, but will require, if you ask an institution, how do you actually evaluate when institutional capital should get deployed on the developer side? It's a 2-month or a 3-month long exercise, but I will put it very simply on how it gets done basically. So the first basic hygiene check that we are doing is basically anybody or an organization that has survived multiple cycles. They've been into the business for multiple decades, they've seen the up and down of the real estate cycle, and how have they really responded to those cycles, how have they fared out, and when we talk about them surviving, what is important is, in spite of whatever has happened, have they scaled up, have they become better in terms of their balance sheet strength, and how sustainable the journey looks from here on. So I would say scale definitely is one of the important factors. Balance sheet strength is important because when institutional money is coming your way, yes, we underwrite a particular project, their cash flows, and we try to ring fence everything for ourselves, but we are also, building up a doomsday scenario that let's say everything in my project goes south. So we need to see that will the balance sheet have the strength to actually wither that kind of impact on our project, and will we still be able to recover our money? So that is one of the important factors, basic hygiene check. One of the least talked about factor that you will see, and I don't see many conferences even discussing that, but I have myself in my 17 years of core lending experience have seen that evolve as one of the most important factors is how compliant is this organization really?
Very true.
You know, like what is the kind of evolution the sector has seen after RERA? It has led to cost of the entire project going up vis-a-vis what we used to underwrite 5 years back. The cost of underwriting a project only purely from compliance, and maybe Manik can tell us further about that, has really gone up. So for us as an institution, it is very important that the compliances are in order, the kind of auditors that you have, the kind of processes that you are following across all your function, even HR, salary payouts, statutory payments, the way you're logging in your sales, everything is so important nowadays. And it is, I would say that to the extent that we are okay to underwrite a medium-sized balance sheet if it is better compliant than a larger player which is not as compliant to the medium-sized one. So going forward, you will see the way the financial market is evolving for the sectors and the kind of products which are coming for real estate sectors, which honestly I have not seen in the last 1.5 decades being available, are primarily a result of compliances that have happened in the sector. Besides that, I think the softer aspects then that come into play are, what is the promoter track record? How did he enter into the business? What is the product that they are offering? What is the perceived value of that product in the market? How does the customer perceive this organization? So, but I would still underline compliance again because that's not talked about a lot, but it is very important going forward.
I just want to add small thing, Rafat is, she's a veteran lender and know her very well. She only spoke about the quantitative criteria that she can discuss or speak here, which is all your Excel sheets or your notes. There is something called qualitative criteria. That's a secret sauce known only to them. Even if you fulfill all the criteria as per their quantitative criteria, if you fill all those Excel sheets, all those notes, क्योंकि वो जो secret sauce है मैडम इनके पास, which is called qualitative criteria, which is kept so close to their own heart, that is not disclosed here. That only they know as to why and to whom and how much they'll disburse. No complaints.
Great. But from Rafat's side, I think, very critical is compliance. Yes, as a developer, your legacy is important, your balance sheet size is important, cash flows are important, security is important. But अगर आप compliance के perspective पे वो compliant नहीं हो, so I don't think, you will be able to sustain for long. Even if an institution gives you money today, you will not be able to probably retain that for long. So I think compliance plays a very, very important role today for any developer today that we talk about. Okay, my next question goes to Abhijit. So Mr. Abhay Garg is the head Earth Fund. Welcome to the panel, Abhijit. So, Abhijit, high-end developers increasingly incorporate green features and certifications. हम सबने सुना है green building, or even if you talking about other certifications that we have, it's like quite common now. But are Indian buyers actually willing to pay a premium for sustainability? Is there evidence of pricing premiums? What does price realization data suggest? मतलब, if you talk to any developer today, अभी तो हम लोगों ने फिर भी green financing, green buildings, and I know companies like Bootis who've been working on the old buildings, making them from the ESG perspective, green buildings वो लोग काफ़ी कर रहे हैं. उन्होंने एक झांसी में प्रोजेक्ट कराया है, पुरानी बिल्डिंग को उन्होंने रिवैम्प करके कराया है. They've been working with a lot of warehouses. But from a normal developer's perspective, how do you think these green buildings and certifications can be more incorporated or pushed?
Right.
So thanks for inviting me to the panel, and my sincere apologies, I was running late. But I think before I answer that, I also heard one of my co-panelists talk about the dearth of capital and the startups in this ecosystem. I'm very proud to share that through two initiatives you can access a lot of startups and invest in a lot of startups. The first initiative is the Real Estate Accelerator program run by Brigade REAP. It has more than 100 startups now across the value chain of real estate, right from pre-land to post-sales, where tech meets the built environment. So I think I'll request and urge everybody in this room to have a look at the program and to look at the startups and very good scaled startups now in the range of 10 crores to 100 crore revenues. 20% of them are now doing overseas business. So a lot of action happening. I think on the funding side, we are also proud to announce that we have launched the first of its kind fund for urban tech and prop tech, which means startups which are at the intersection of the built environment and technology through Earth Fund. So Earth Fund has been launched. It is now beginning to invest in startups at a much later stage, and with the backing of HDFC Capital, Nikhil Kamat's Gruhas and Brigade Group and many other limited partners, we are able to now invest in startups. So I think we are looking at very encouraging signs. The way I draw a parallel is, I think urban tech and sustainability and prop tech is where fintech was 6 or 7 years back, right? So we are at an inflection point. Tech spends in this sector are only 1%, as opposed to much higher spends. If you look in the context of GDP and if you look in the context of how big the sector is, right? So we have a lot of headroom. We have a lot of room for adoption of tech, and now I'm very happy to share that we have a range of startups across asset classes, across the value chain, right? But to your immediate question, I think, let me take a step back and say that with a net zero target for India at 2070, and with certain, range of corporates, particularly in the real estate sector, taking targets anywhere from 2045 to 2050, with us, when I say us as industry, as real estate being the second highest emitters of greenhouse gas emissions, the problem is very acute. We are also a very price sensitive industry, which means that when I see the three stakeholders in a manner of speaking, which is the supplier, the developer and the end consumer, right? Extremely price sensitive. And what does it mean in terms of fiscal, incentives or legislation that can spur adoption of green solutions? So there are plenty of solutions I can tell you, whether it is air, whether it is energy efficiency, whether it is water, whether it's metering solutions, whether it is clean air, whether it is, how we consume energy. The question that comes to my mind, and let me take an immediate example, let's take green cement, right? We know that there are cementitious materials, there are geopolymers out there waiting to be commercialized and in the process of getting commercialized. How can I as a developer or as a consumer, the end buyer of a flat, and as a supplier, look at the government and say, help me? And the one parallel that comes to my mind is EVs, right? Electric vehicles. How did that take off in the country, and now the share that you have with EVs? The GST is at its lowest. You don't have to pay as high a registration fees. And of course, they perform very well, right? But
absolutely.
Yes. So the question is, how can we replicate or borrow some of these in the context of real estate environment,
Green.
right?
Yeah.
Now looking at my companies and my portfolio and the pipeline that I'm evaluating, for me, one of the wish lists would be, how can you reduce the GST on some of the input materials which are sustainable in nature, right? Because price parity is still to be achieved, right? Like how we looked at solar power, which was 16 rupees per unit, and it now is at 3.5 rupees per unit.
3.5, 4.
Right?
Yeah.
So that, I think, is a journey which we all need to put our hands up, starting with the government and with fiscal incentives. I think there should be, and there must be an incentive, both a negative and a positive incentive, which means you pay a carbon tax if you're not able to eliminate your carbon footprint. At the same time, you should be incentivized as a developer or as a buyer, I believe. I am aware that there are projects now which are launched in Bangalore and in Mumbai, which are at a project level green projects.
Yeah.
Which means at a project level they are net positive, zero. Because well-aware consumers are ready to pay a premium actually. So when to your question, there is pricing power, but how sustainable is it and what is the delta? is yet to be seen. We are still in early stages of that discussion. I think some fiscal incentives, incentivizing the end user, which is the buyer of the flat, if that were to be implemented, then it incentivizes everybody down the value chain. The developer knows कि मेरा माल बिकेगा.
That's important.
Right.
When the developer gets that confidence कि ठीक है अगर मैं 2 पैसा extra भी ले रहा हूँ for a green building, if I'm able to sell at that rate, so that's
और
a
rather
confidence
मैं
required,
in fact मैं
right?
parity पे बेचूंगा लेकिन मैं जो extra खर्चा कर रहा हूँ वो मुझे I'll recoup that, right? Because right now, as I said, there is not price parity as far as inputs are concerned, whether it is cement, whether it is gypsum boards, whether it is energy that you can generate to some of the renewable means, whether there is waste disposal, whether there is construction debris removal and management, right? Across the value chain, we are still not at scale, or the solutions are not at scale. We are still in relatively early stages. As an investor, I'm excited because I see that growth happening with a lot of the people in this room and those incentives coming in. And even if the incentives are not coming in, I think we need to move to a world which is cleaner and safer. While we look at faster and cheaper, we are moving to a world which is cleaner and safer. So I think it is a matter of time. I think even if we don't get fiscal incentives, it is a matter of time before we self-adopt and self-regulate. I have never been a big fan of subsidies. I think they can start a sector, but they can't sustain a sector, right? So I think, but we need that help, and I see that like we got support in the electronic or rather EV automobiles. We saw it in the power sector. I think it's waiting to happen in our sector as well.
Super, great.
I just want to add a small thing. Of course, fully agree with you on this one, except that for the commercial office buildings, because of the push from the institutional or large corporate tenants, they have largely gone to green buildings, largely. Plus also they were given some incentive from the government in the shape of little higher FSI if you comply with the LEED certification or other certifications. So for commercial or for institutional buildings, you will find them largely today a very high percentage of green buildings and the green capital coming in. But for residential, absolutely right. Until you have incentives kicking in, and because it is such a price sensitive, if your same apartment is 1,000 rupees more expensive than mine, nobody will buy you, even if you are the more environmental compliant. So therefore, there has to be some incentivization done by the government on that.
Spot on. I think grade A assets, like you said, right, it is user driven. So if an Amazon or if a Google is mandating,
warehouses,
they will have to. But I still see that penetration and the overall market size of that still relatively not as high. And yes, you get the extra FSI and you can custom make buildings. But I think we're still scratching the surface in that asset class.
Great. Thank you so much. My next question goes to Manik. So, real estate IPO activity has been notably active last year. The market is open, but timing is everything. So, when is an optimal stage for a developer to consider listing after stabilizing cash flows while still in the growth mode? I think.
So look, I think in India, in real estate, probably, and my numbers will be probably plus minus 2 or 3, not more than that. We have done broadly 145 IPOs in real estate sector.
Right.
That has happened. Now, out of these 145, if you look at relevant real estate companies, are not more than 20. You will talk of any valuation northward of 1,000 odd CR. Even in listed space, it tends to get lost. So I think from a company, if you are getting yourself listed, I don't think there is enough capital which is available today, unfortunately, for a small company till the time you have stabilized to be able to garner that amount of interest, even if you are able to list yourself. So I would rather say that, I know sir will have some point around it, but I think I would rather say that unless and until you have attained a particular size, there is no point getting into this space. Obviously, I think the intent always remains that till the time you are I think the point always remains that when your cash flows are good, only then you will find investments or your stock will be battered. Now, which basically means that the timing of IPO has to be right when things are perfect. End of the day, it's a cyclical business. It's a cyclical business. There will be times which will be not as good as today. So you will always need that equity option. But then
Absolutely.
said that, over a period of long run, I am a very firm believer that equity for those who are investing in the company, if you look at an horizon of 5 to 7 years, will always yield positive results. As far as you are able to find that right company, largely all the criteria that Rafat highlighted while giving them.
Compliance, security, everything together.
I will not say anything now.
That's the reason I qualified my last line.
Tell you what, if you really want to talk about IPOs and real estate, there was a saying that real estate companies are not meant for IPOs in a way, because they are supposed to be unlocked in a more institutional fashion, like REIT or SM REIT, or a monetization in the form of digital platforms and others. Why? Because it is highly cyclical, extremely cyclical.
Right.
Today we are seeing a big bull run in our country, big bull run in the residential real estate. Everything you launch is selling. Some micro markets are seeing saturation. Otherwise, we are seeing a big bull run. And therefore, there is plethora of real estate companies getting IPO'd and getting listed here. Nothing wrong in that. But frankly,
Probably one of
there's
the
a
structure.
mismatch, because when the cycle turns, although they have extremely valuable land parcels that will be unlocked one day, but when the cycle turns, sales will go down humongously. It's not like Hindustan Lever or a Colgate or one of those consumer goods which are more all around the year.
I think, Ismail sir, the only viewpoint that I have is that fortunately in India, there are no ghost towns that are getting created. So even if there is a turn in cycle, it typically will happen in a small phases. As of now, we are not seeing any oversupply in market. I think I probably Rafat would have heard me saying it n number of times, but that's my favorite example to state when it comes to giving an example of scale. I think Delhi NCR, a population of 3.4 CR, has overall supply was 45,000 units.
Okay.
And if you look at comparable metro cities, you will not find crazy supplies crossing a lakh in terms of units. Now, if you compare this to entire Canada, with a population of around between 4 to 5 CR, which is not growing. NCR is growing by 3% CAGR over last 20 years. Overall unit supply is 2 lakh.
Right.
You look at
So it's
UK
a
with a
growth.
population of 6.5 crores, overall unit supply is 2.5 lakhs. Now someone can argue that maybe we are not counting plotted supply, or we are not counting unorganized sector. Assuming everything else gets accounted for, there is a better way drive that we are able to count everything. The fact still remains that matured supply
The demand
coming
is
is
there.
only 45,000 units. So how wrong can you go? Again, I think that initial discussion that sir only raised, that there is no startup which is coming. Even if they are, I think their size and scale
are, yeah.
far too small. And to be able to see the life cycle, it is not a simple, unfortunately, real estate, you have to go through land acquisition stage, license stage, development stage. You need, it's a capital intensive business.
It's a capital intensive
and that
business.
entire infra is not around today to nurture a particular developer in each phase. Maybe one or two get lucky, but that's about it. So in my, again, look, I am a developer, and we always are extremely optimistic in our
It's
in our thought
important.
process.
That's important.
So are we as lawyers for developers. So yeah, we are equally optimistic. I fully agree with you. No doubt on that. I said the very famous
But-
international saying.
But Hadiji, what Manik is also talking about IPOs is after a certain level that you cross. मतलब ठीक है, आज कोई भी स्टार्टअप आके ये नहीं बोलेगा कि मेरे को 2 साल में IPO लेके आना है. So he will also have to figure out the balance sheets and everything, the legal compliances, due diligences, everything needs to be taken care before he can be actually going for an IPO.
See, today I tell you a few things. One is that there are new regulations and laws in place which have helped real estate developers to be more disciplined, like RERA. Okay. Otherwise, if you look at the data, highest number of companies in insolvencies today are real estate sector. Can you believe that? It's not steel, it's not cement. It
That's-
is real estate.
that's
It's
before
75%.
era.
I like to pick
That's
a little.
before era.
I like to say something more positive. I mean, given
Zara,
what I'm hearing, I think if you look at the IPOs in the tech space in real estate, I think are disproportionately higher. The pipeline that you look at IPOs or even exits within, as I said, we are at an inflection point. Whether you look at an infra.market, whether you look at basic, whether you look at an office, whether you look at an IndiCube. I mean, the list is long. I can keep going on because not just simply because I'm an investor or I'm running a fund, but because we truly believe that we are at an inflection point. While the GDP will grow at a certain rate, banking will grow at a certain rate, hence financing will grow at a certain rate, hence consumption will grow at a certain rate, hence residential will have its ups and downs. I think if you build, you will need technology. If you sell, you will need technology. If you are not able to sell, you will need technology because
Absolutely.
then you'll put more money behind selling and figuring out how to get out of it. So I think as a sector we are not going anywhere. As a macro and a micro, I think there will be ups and downs. Micro markets might face some struggles. Certain individual developers might face struggles, but as a thematic area, I think we are in a cyclical bull
As a
run.
sector, we are a sound sector.
So, but I want to add one thing. Why a real estate company want to go for an IPO? Public money is the most expensive money. Unless the balance sheet is good and they are able to raise fund from bank
That you can say
No,
it's another.
I have to object, sir.
It's another
I really have to
structure.
object it. And again, my rationale of objection
It's
is
another
why only
structure
this
for
question to a
fundraise.
real estate developer? I mean, the same applies to everyone.
Yeah, sure. It is applied to everyone. But since we are sitting in a panel discussing that particular industry,
No, look, I think we always need capital. And if we have to grow, if we have to expand, we need to look at all alternative sources of capital. In all fairness, I think when it comes to equity market, we are looking at all our partners to join in, to grow together. And I think that's a very, very motto of getting yourself in a listed space.
Absolutely. Great. So,
रफत ने एक पॉइंट ऐड किया कि जो साइकिल कितनी साइकिल देखी है डाउन की, every down cycle 50% of developers are out.
Yeah, you're right. Correct.
Every cycle. So
But hopefully with RERA in place, that 50% should become not 20%.
yeah.
But going forward, I
changes
don't
are-
foresee that trend happening.
lot of changes. Great. So, I think.
To wait for another cycle to see.
I think now looking at the time frame we have, I'll take one question with each one of you and a quick one here. So Hardeep ji, Maharashtra accounts for 35% of India's total RERA registered projects, with over 50,000 registrations at disappropriate share that goes beyond the state's economic wealth alone. What has Maharashtra and the Maharashtra RERA done differently that other states haven't replicated?
See, Maharashtra RERA is for the entire state of Maharashtra. It covers your very key cosmo cities, your Bombay, your Pune, your Thane, your Panvel. You have Nagpur. That anyway is a big market. It's a big market here. We can't compare that with that of Delhi, which that way is a far micro market, or Gurgaon, which is again a far micro market. But yeah, you got a point. They got the highest number of registration. That could by itself could be the number of cities RERA covers. Otherwise, saying that people in Maharashtra are more compliant than people in Gurgaon, I don't think so. I think it's just sheer number of cities.
So it's just the horizon that you're talking about that these guys are covering. Great. So Pradeep ji, next question to you. Retail REIT remains underrepresented in India. Nexus Select Trust is currently the only listed retail REIT with a portfolio of 10.6 million square feet. Why has retail real estate struggled to transition into REIT structure compared to office assets? Quick one.
Basically in REIT, yield is very important. What yield we are getting every month or every quarter. In office building, there's a lock-in period, rent are well defined, escalation clauses are there. But when the malls are concerned, retail part is concerned, rental part is in two parts. One is fixed, another is variable. And the variable, you can't ascertain yield kya aayegi. And then the sale is also cyclic. During season, the sale is very high. And
That's cyclical.
Managing that part is slightly difficult. Then again, each mall is having around 200 to 300 tenants. And office building are having 3-4 tenants, that's all. So large corporate taking most part of the building. So managing 3, 5 or 10 tenant, then managing 300 tenant, managing their variable payouts, all these things are very, very difficult to generate yield. So Nexus is an organization jiska their capacity to manage and their spread pan nation is good. So they are able to handle it. But
it's just a volume.
Yeah, so that's why other REITs are not yet so enthusiastic to enter this field. But this is again a good field.
And again, I think one more probably reason remains that apart from Nexus, I think Phoenix is another guy which is actually listed.
Right, he's done.
So they probably own 13 or 14 odd million square feet, but you won't be able to name a third developer that probably owns more than 7 odd million square feet in space. So that ownership of retail spaces in an overall market, the overall penetration of developers holding yielding assets in retail space is simply too small right now. So that's one area where probably some incentivization will need to be worked upon so that developers are incentivized enough to develop and then continue to hold those particular assets.
I think that's an important point because that's the whole reason probably many people are not able to enter that space. Rafat, next one to you. Looking ahead, how do you see underwriting for real estate financing evolving by the end of this decade?
Sunil, all my questions are sounding so traditional. It is making me look so old, but anyways, I would. Everybody, we have a big startup and it's the funding startups. Manik is on the verge of an IPO. Hardeep is talking about all the things the sector needs. I'm talking about how do we not give funding. So I will paint a good picture for everybody here. So let's just go back. I can't predict what will happen a decade later, but I think we are in a very good space from the sector's perspective. I will take you back very briefly to 2007, let's say, when there was an influx of equity into the real estate sector. A lot of equity came into the sector, but I don't think as a sector or a country we were ready to get that kind of money coming in without the riders it required. The regulatory environment wasn't ready, and we saw a lot of chaos around those equity instruments in terms of exits, in terms of valuations and other things. 2007-8 onwards, we saw that the only financing that was available to the sector was bank financing.
Right.
You could just approach banks, and that too, banks were shying away from the sector to a larger extent. So the only amount of financing that the sector could probably look at was construction financing at the project level, heavily collateralized, so which kind of choked their bandwidth on the balance sheet level. Let's just jump forward a decade later. Today we are talking about multiple instruments that have come into the sector and which are so beautifully structured that they just address every need. I agree, Hardeep and Manik can probably say that abhi nahi ho rahe hain sabke structure needs pure, but I think we are in a much better shape. See, imagine we're talking about REITs today. Yeah. The only instrument available for a ready, good, decent, grade A asset was LRD. We're talking about REITs, then there are InvITs available, then we're talking about AIFs that have come into play. So I think these trends I continue to foresee that the markets will deepen on the REIT side of it, InvIT side of it. Second very important trend that we are seeing is the acceptability of real estate developer in the public capital market, like the IPO route, while we still are away. Manik, but if you actually compare from the DLF time of listing to today, there is realty index in the last few years has been one of the good performing indices. And then, there is acceptability on real estate developers going and accessing capital from the public market. So QIPs and everything has happened. Thirdly, I see that the smaller pools that are now becoming available but will become bigger in the future is the AIF route which is available. AIF is there, then structured debt, private credit. So I think these things, and we will see more products, like, even the fractional ownership should get regular, there will be a regulatory framework around those, and that again will provide financing to the sector. So I think we're in a good time, and what took 10 years or 20 years for these instruments to become available, I think that journey will be covered in a much shorter span of, let's say, 3 to 4 years. We'll see a lot of depth adding into each individual instrument.
Totally
So
agree.
I can see that our host is charging at us कि भाई इसको रोको अब time निकल गया
Last. No, I think very well taken, Rafat. I completely agree. So there is a lot of structures which have already been added in the real estate side if the developer is good and the projects are good. So आज की date में there are structures, are a lot of them available, and we are hoping lot many more structures to support the projects. Last one to Abhay. What should the upcoming budget, we are expecting a budget now, budget do to meaningfully accelerate green building adoptions? I think that's important. We were talking about a lot of support that we would require. So what are your expectations there?
So I think, again, I'll just go back to the first points I made. I think both on the input, usage and final sale, right? So three people involved in the value chain, the supplier or the input providers. If we can encourage schemes which will be, production linked, incentive based schemes, whether it is materials, whether it is processes, right? Similarly I think it will boil down to what the end buyer gets to pay for it, and hence the whole value chain benefits from it. I think just like you have, accelerated, depreciation benefits or tax benefits or tax breaks, I think if I were told that, if I invested in an asset which has got a certain rating or a classification or is certified by a certain regulator to mean that it is a green building and I get a better tax break, I think I will be incentivized, and maybe from a usage or an investment standpoint, it just will start, make it a tax-linked investment product, I think, and that simply just makes everybody happy in the room, because where your tax is getting saved, or whether it's where the fiscal deficit is getting created, and hence who is paying for what, right? So everybody in the value chain has predictability, and it just gives a very clear boost to any green initiative. So I think I would pitch for that.
Great, wonderful. Thank you so much. So I think, we've had a wonderful discussion on funding, on structures, on IPO, SM REIT. So I think, a lot of takeaways from this session that we've had. And I would like to thank all my panelists for taking out time for a discussion. I think pretty well taken. Thank you so much.
Can we have a huge round of applause for the panelists, please, all of them? पहला क्वेश्चन जब निकला था ना, मुझे लगा पता नहीं कौन सी लैंग्वेज है, मुझे बोलना पड़ेगा सोनल को हिंदी में बोलना प्लीज यार. But then it kind of got interesting with the secret sauce coming in कि आप पैसा कैसे देते हैं डेवलपर्स को, वो प्लीज बताना. साइड में बता देना चाहिए तो, लेकिन प्लीज बताना कि डेवलपर्स को पैसा कैसे देते हैं. नहीं, वही पूछ रहा हूँ कि सीक्रेट सॉस का राज, वही मैं पूछ रहा हूँ. सीक्रेट सॉस उनके पास है, उसका राज जानना चाहते हैं कि वो पैसा कैसे मिलता है एक्स्ट्रा और थोड़ा लोअर इंटरेस्ट रेट पे. वो ज़्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट है. क्यों मानिक जी, क्या कहते हो? हाँ, you didn't hear the last part? क्या बात कर रहा है? अभी जी, we would definitely like to see that day जब इंसेंटिवाइजेशन ज़्यादा हो जाता है ग्रीन बिल्डिंग्स के लिए. ईवीज को मिल रहा है, हमें क्यों नहीं मिलता? हम पास करेंगे नहीं करेंगे, वो उसका क्वेश्चन मत पूछना. एज डेवलपर्स हम पास करें नहीं करें, क्यों मानिक जी, वो हमें क्वेश्चन मत पूछना. लास्ट बट नॉट द लीस्ट, मैं मानिक जी से बोलना चाहूँगा, सर प्री IPO डालने दोगे? On a lighter note, thank you very much all the panelists. It was a wonderful discussion. Finance का ऐसा discussion जिसमें सारे के सारे participate करें और एक दूसरे को counter करें बार-बार, मजा आता है बहुत. So we have a lot of Arnab Goswamis going on back and forth, which is good. So can we now felicitate the panelists, please? Can I invite Dr. Kunal Banerjee to come on stage and felicitate our panelists, starting with Sonal Mehta. Can we have a round of applause, guys, please? आप सब अभी तक यहाँ पे मेरे साथ बैठे हैं तो ऑब्वियसली फाइनेंस को थोड़ा बहुत समझने लगे हैं, रीट को समझने लगे हैं. Can we have the memento and the thing from NAREP to Ms. Sonal Mehta? Okay, next, can I invite my friend Deepak Dureja to come on stage, please? Deepak, sir, आप यहीं रहिए, please. Stay here, sir. Can we have the next one going on to Mr. Manik Malik, CEO VPTP? Can we have the memento and the token from NAREP, please? Yes, sir. Yeah. 1 second, hold on. Can I invite Dr. Kunal Banerjee again, please? आप यहीं रहिए, सर. यहीं रहो, सर, आप मेरे साथ. आप मत जाओ कहीं. Yeah. Can I now invite Mr. Pradeep Misra, please? Mr. Pradeep Misra. Dr. Kunal Banerjee, please present the memento and the token. तालियां बजा दीजिए जोर से एक बार पीछे वाले खासकर. Great, yeah. Okay, can I have the next one also going from you, sir? Dr. Banerjee, please stay. Please stay, sir. Can we now invite Ms. Rafat Jahan Siddiqui, please? With the secret sauce, Rafat. Just kidding. Sir, please present the token as well. Last but not the least, sir, Mr. Abhay Garg was the head Earth Fund. Okay. Some confusions happening. No confusions. अभी आ रहा हूँ. नहीं सर. सर सबसे कंट्रोवर्शियल आदमी को सबसे लास्ट में रखते हैं सर. Okay, last but not the least, Mr. Hardeep Sachdeva for countering every point and coming up with something or the other. Sir, real estate developers हैं. No, not getting paid for it. Huh? So neither am I getting paid, sir. Please. Okay. So we're all doing this pro bono, sir. Can I have all the people come in out here for a group photograph, please? All the panelists. With your yes, memento, please. With your memento, that'll help. Yeah. Just hold on to your memento. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Sonal. Thank you, Hardeep ji. Thank you, Manik ji. Thank you, Pradeep ji. And Rafat and Abhay ji. Thank you very much. Thank you, all of you.